sure don't look like you did when you were a kid. Well, I talked to them a little bit, and about 2 or 3 of them had got saved. Out of all of that class, 2 or 3 of them. The rest of them, the mean kids were still mean. The smart alecks were still smart alecks. The blabbers were still blabbers. They hadn't changed one bit over all these years. That spirit of what was in them, you know, it doesn't change. I've noticed this pastoring all these years, that if you're a drunkard, you'll probably be a drunkard all the rest of your life. If you're a dope addict, you'll be doping it when you're 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. You'll still be messing around with it. You say, Brother Green, well, I've noticed that people don't change unless God hits you broadside. Unless you change, converted, washed in the blood, you're going to go right on your same old way. Amen. Now, I was a kid. I grew up with those kids. And I was part of those kids' friends. I was a Baptist boy and a little different than the rest of them, but not, you know, I stood up in front of all of them and I said, I want you to know I really want to apologize for not being the Christian that I ought to have been when I was with you people. I was a Christian and I tried to live halfway decent, but I didn't want you, I want you to know I'm sorry. And I really got straightened out. I said about 50 years ago, I really gave my heart and life to Christ, lock, stock, and barrel, teetotally, unconditionally, took my hands off my life, and God has changed my whole life, and I'm a different person. You say, yeah, I told him that. I told him that. Well, then afterwards, somebody said, you know, I got saved too, and I got saved too, and I got saved, and I got saved. But anyway, I'm trying to say, if you're a brat, you'll probably be a brat all your life. Are you a brat? Are you a brat? Did you not get enough lickings when you were a kid? Now, do you still want to have your own way and pout when things don't go your way and stomp your feet and get all mad and blow your nose and get me? Are you still a fighter, want to fight, get mad, clean your plow, all that kind of stuff? You'll probably be that way all your life unless God changes you. God can change you, and He wants to change you. He wants to mold you, form you after His pattern, and make something out of your life. And I wanted you to, but I'm telling you, He said, though thou shouldest bray a fool in a mortar among wheat with a pistol, yet will not his foolishness depart from him. Something's got to happen to change that fella. Brother, I'm going to keep on. I'm going to see if I got a couple more verses on. I'll put 23 and 24 together. Be thou diligent to know the state of thy flocks, and look well to thy herds. For riches are not forever, and doth the crown endure to every generation. He's saying nothing ever really continues. Nothing is forever in this world. You know, I grew up, I was born in Detroit. I grew up in Detroit, which is a big city. I go downtown once in a while, Detroit. And those buildings, like the J.L. Hudson building that was there when I was a boy, it was the greatest shopping center in the whole world. That was before any malls. Some of you can't even remember when there wasn't any malls. Can't remember when all the main shopping of every town was done downtown. But all those buildings downtown were beautiful buildings when I was just a little boy. You know, 60, 70 years has changed those buildings. There are broken windows in them, and I guess they tried to really spruce them up a little bit for the Super Bowl that was downtown. They wanted to paint windows of those old buildings with people inside it, so it looked like people were inside them. To kind of fool people, but anyway, they're falling down. You'd think, well, the guy that built those buildings, you'd say, boy, they're going to be here forever, but they're not. They're not. And somebody come right along Here's where Brother Gunning works over here at the factory. That factory's been there for I don't know how many years, 70, 80, 90 years. They're tearing it down. They're gonna tear it down. You wouldn't think they'd tear it down. So if I seem like they could remodel it, fix it up. But no, it's gotta be torn down. Building a brand new plant out here. And I wanna tell you, I don't care where you live, that house where you live in, be torn down. That car that you're driving, have you ever been driving down the highway and see these cars on the back of a truck? They're squashed down to about like that. And you made $200 or $300 a month payments on that thing right there, and it's been crushed to nothing almost. You look at it the next time and think about how much of a sucker I have been to pay all that money and ended up in the scrapyard is what it ends up in. You think when you got that car, you got everything there is in this world. Or whatever it might be, whether it's a motorcycle or a boat or whatever. They say that 2 happiest days of anybody that has a boat is the day they buy it and the day they sell it. You think you just, if I had this, I'd have everything. But there's nothing here that really amounts to much, because it's all going down and decaying and falling apart, and riches are not forever. That's what it says in our text here. And he said, be thou diligent to know the state of thy flocks, and look well on thy herds. Take care of things. Take care of your flock. Take care of your cows, your sheep, your whatever. There's kind of an agricultural text here with it, because that's pretty well basic. Everybody was agriculture in the days of Solomon. But he's trying to tell us, take care of things, because they're not going to last forever. And you feed your flock. Take care of your flock, because things will slip away from you. Don't depend on somebody else to take care of your flock and hire some shepherd to do that. He's just a hireling, and he won't really take care of that. You have to, somebody said, the best helping hand, listen to me, the best helping hand that you could ever find is at the end of your elbow. That hand, right? Your hand. You take care of things. You take care of it. Don't trust somebody else to take care of it, but you take care of it. You take care of your health. So, well, my mother is taking care of my health. I want to tell you something. She's not going to be around forever either. And you better take care of your health. You better take care of your house. You better take care of your household, your children, your wife, your husband. You better take care of your hopes and your plans and your own happiness. And take care of it. And if you got a little bit of happiness, work on it. Keep it more. You got to take care of our homeland, our United States of America. We can't depend on France or Russia or somebody else to help us. I'm for Mr. Bush. I think Mr. Bush is over there fighting those folks in Iraq. But that's exactly where we need to be. So I don't believe it. Well, it's because you haven't got any sense. Because you can't just let people run all over us either. I like somebody who's got some, going to take care of our homeland. Amen. Amen. And we have to take care of the house of God. And it's a constant upkeep. Really, it is. I really think a lot about. I think a lot about what you do with your life, how you invest your life. But let me just say this. This man's a builder, but his father is a builder and passed it down to him. This dad was getting ready to retire, and he said, son, I want you to build one more house for me, if you won't mind. He said, no, I'll do it, Dad. And he said he'd give him so much money to build it with, and he said, well, I believe I could do a lot of things. I could buy, instead of buying 2x4s, I'd buy 1x4s or whatever. I'm just using that and just kind of shrunk here and slipped there and chiseled here and chiseled there and everything. Just fixed the house, made it look good on the outside and even on the inside, but it was chintzy put together. It wasn't really done scholarly and wonderfully and beautifully like it ought to be. When he got all done, he said, son, here's the keys to your house. This is your house. Now he had to live in the house that he had built. And that's just about the way it is. You live in the house that you build. And if you build and want to sneak your way through and fool around, mess around, play around, then you'll have to live with what you got because you made it just exactly like you want. I'm going to take this verse 25 and 26 and 27, put them together here. I'm not trying to shortchange you, but I want to get done with this chapter. Okay, verse 25. The hay appeareth. That's, you know what hay is, so it's horses eat hay, you know. And the tender grass showeth itself, and the herbs of the mountains are gathered. The lambs are for the clothing, and the goats are the price of the field. And thou shalt have goat's milk enough for thy food, for the food of thy household, and for the maintenance for thy maidens. Verse 23 and 24 we just got through doing tells us about taking care of what we've got, and our flocks and our herds and our house and our cars and our possessions, and being satisfied that you're taking care of, responsible person with character, not just let the house fall through to the basement. Don't put shingles on, let the rain come in and ruin everything. That's what he's talking about. He's saying, he outlines the hay and the grass and the lambs and the goats. And he's saying these things, well, he said the hay, of course, and the grass, of course, is for the animals to graze on. And he's saying these lambs produce wool, and the wool is for clothing. And he said the goats produce milk, and the milk is for food for the children, as well as using the milk to make bread and cakes and flour and pancakes and whatever else there is to eat with the milk. And he said, be responsible. Don't waste these things, and take care of everything is geared around work. You have to sow the hay to get hay, and you're going to have to work at the lambs to get the wool, and you're going to have to feed those goats to get the milk. But the whole principle, the character building principle is you got something to do, take care of it, work at it, make a living off of it. Talking about integrity, talking about character, talking about faithfulness and regularity and discipline and work habits and dependability. He's also talking about the free enterprise system. The Bible teaches every man is responsible. Listen to me. Every man is responsible for his own family. Kids, please listen to me. I feel bad if you grow up someday and live off the government. It bothers me. It bothers me terribly. My dad and mother taught me that every tub sits on its own bottom. Everybody makes their own living. Everybody pays their own light bill, their gas bill, their fuel bill, their automobile, their everything. You take care of your own responsibility. And it's a lot of work to take care of the cows and take care of the sheep and take care of the chickens and take care of everything else. But you'll have food for your family, you have clothes for their back. You'll have things to take care of those that work for you and help you in your life. And so it takes hard work a year round, planting and cultivating and harvesting and feeding and taking care and fleecing the wool, and so everything becomes a great value. But you have to work to get all this materials and these things and to survive. And the old saying used to be when I was a kid, no working, no eating. No working, no eating. Well, Paul said something like that. He said, if a man doesn't take care of his own, he's worse than an infidel. And he also said that those that do not work, neither should they eat. That's a part of the philosophy of Christianity. And God will have us learn that it's nobody else's responsibility. You and you and you and you. I know that this welfare system in our country is of the devil. All this social welfare, social services. You get sick, you go over there and you expect the government to pay the bill to get you better. You don't have any groceries, so you go to the government and then they put groceries on your table. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Now, that's not God's plan. I grant you there are people that are sick and hurtful and mentally retarded and people that are handicapped and people that can't work. I understand all that, and we're to take care of them. That's a part of our responsibility. But just a person that is a healthy person and sponging off this government and sponging off is a wicked, wicked, wicked thing. Say amen right there. Amen. I preached enough. I'm about ready to take up an offering now. God bless you. Thanks. I well wore myself out today. My first verse tonight is the first verse of the 28th chapter of this book of Proverbs. So we are coming in closer all the time. We're getting to the place where we're going to wind up this book. It'll take us the rest of the semester, I'm sure, at the rate that we're going, but I hope to finish it right up this semester. The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion. I know it does seem like that the wicked people of this world seem to be bold and unafraid, cocky, a lot of times conceited. But they really are full of fear. And especially about meeting God face to face because of their wickedness. I would think that when a person is really right with God, when they're really right with God, there is boldness in your life for Christ. I've noticed over the years, my own personal life, spiritually, when I was the closest to God, I was the most bold to witness. When I back off, then I would not be as bold. Joshua 1:9 said, "Have not I commanded thee to be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee, whithersoever thou goest. I think tonight with this verse, I'm going to kind of dwell on it for a moment or two, the necessity of being a bold Christian for Christ. Again, I'd say this is my class. This is a class for people who are interested in serving the Lord. And you cannot be a milquetoast and timid if you're going to be a great Christian and a great Christian leader. You have to have some grit in your craw to be able to stand up to the world and speak out for Christ and be bold. Solomon's bold as a lion. I know what bothers you. I've studied this. I know what bothers you and keeps you from being bold. Number one, I would think it's because you are afraid of being despised, or maybe being not accepted by people, or maybe embarrassed because of your boldness, or maybe feel like people wouldn't take it right and you would become persecuted for your boldness, or maybe become a gazing stock, or perhaps a reproach to people that they wouldn't like you because you told them about Christ. But when you're really right with God, you don't have to fear. You will gain the respect of the people that you're so fearful about. You know, class, I've said this a lot of times, and I could be wrong about it, but in my estimation, the Apostle Paul was probably the greatest Christian that ever lived. Now you may say, well, there are others, and I'm sure there have been some wonderful Christians in the last 2,000 years. But this man was bold, and he became, as he said, a spectacle. He said, I'm a gazing stock. But yet, he gained the respect of the whole world. Really, the Apostle Paul changed the world. He Christianized a great portion of the world in his day. And he is listed as one of the top 10 people of the greatest people that ever lived. Of course, Jesus Christ is one of those, but Paul is too, and so is Moses. And then they probably have Hammurabi and a lot of other worldly people, but in the class of the greatest influence upon the world, Jesus, of course, made the greatness. But the Apostle Paul did too, but boy, he was criticized. He was ostracized. He was put in jail. He became, you know, as he said, a laughing stock. People made fun of him. But 2,000 years has passed now, and how many people do you know in your family that are named by the Apostle Paul? The name Paul is in their, maybe it's not their first name, but their second name of a man. Maybe it's Pauline or Paulette or Paula. All of this, you think, well, what are you trying to say, brother? I'm telling you, he's the most respected person in the world. And he was ridiculed and found fault with So don't be afraid. If you're going to be timid, little milquetoast, you're never going to do anything. I had some trouble in the church just here in the last few days, and I had to confront a man, and just bold as a lion. I was not afraid. No, I wasn't afraid. I was right, and I had to straighten this thing out. And that come right back around until it was a blessing. And the man said, I'm glad you said what you did. If you got the Spirit of God and you're close to God, you're doing right, you can be bold as a lion and you can accomplish something good. I said, you know, people name their kids. How many in this room have got a friend or a family member that's got a Paul in it? Let me see your hand. Look at that. Look at that. Just about everybody. You know what they call, you know what people call the dogs? Nero. That's Emperor of Rome. Or maybe Caesar for the cat. But here's the Apostle Paul that was ridiculed by Nero and Caesar, and he becomes world famous and becomes an example. And people name their names, the name after the apostle all these years. Do what you want to do. But I'm telling you, if you ever want to get somewhere, you're going to have to be bold as a lion. You cannot stay back in your little shell and hide yourself. If you know what I'm talking about, Jesus himself suffered such contempt, and he was despised and rejected of men, and put to shame. But he became the greatest person that ever lived. Now, does that make any sense to you? Paul wrote in his writings, all that shall live godly shall suffer persecution. It's a part of our Christianity, is to speak out for Christ and to speak out against wrong and evil and speak out for what's right. It takes grit in your craw to do that thing. And I would say, how can I overcome this feeling of contempt and worry about what people are going to say? Well, first of all, I would think, if you, listen to me, if you got perfectly right with God, I mean perfectly right, you'd confess every wicked thing wrong in your life. And if you confess it, God's faithful and he'll forgive you. You say, well, I've done this and I've done that in my life and my no. Your testimony is going to be absolute. When you confess, ask God to forgive you. You can talk to anybody, say, well, I know I did that, and I'm sorry. I've asked God to forgive me, and you'll have to forgive me too. And that you don't have to worry about your past and what you've done or what you haven't done. But if you'll honestly repent, I told my wife the other day, I said, it would be so refreshing to see somebody come forward in church and say, I want to just tell this whole church that I'm the biggest rat fink in this church. I have not been doing right. I haven't done right in years and years and years. And I'm cockeyed and crooked as a dog's hind leg. And I'm not right with God. This morning I am getting right with God. I'm going to get right with you. Tell the whole congregation I'm as sorry as I can be. And I want you to forgive me. And from this day forward, you're going to see a change in my life. I believe I'd faint right there. You'd have to call 911. But that's exactly what is needed in our lives, to be honest before God and everybody else. And then you will be bold. You'll have you know you've done wrong, but you've done right about getting it right. You understand what I'm saying? And if you could just be real and not a hypocrite, and if somehow or other you could be a responsible person, be a reasonable person, What I mean by that, and I use this word, overuse it in this class, I know that I do. But if you're a screwball, nobody's gonna have any confidence in you, because you confessed it this week, but you did it again next week, and you did it last week, and you're not responsible at all. You just keep confessing the same old thing all the time. You're nobody. You're nobody. And you never will be anybody, because you haven't got any in your heart and soul to do what's right. You make your confession, but you settle it once for all. You settle it. Rip it out by the roots and forget it and put it in the past and go on under the blood. Now that's the way you make, that's how you get your boldness. And I'm trying to tell you that if you somehow or other just be respectable, do what's right, you will never have to worry about being sorry for taking the shame of Jesus Christ. And he would want you to have that boldness. And don't be ashamed of our Lord. He wasn't ashamed of you. And be just consistent from day to day. And you can be, as our text says this night, bold as a lion. He said, the wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Verse 2, for the transgression of a land, many are made princes. Therefore, thereof, but by a man of understanding and knowledge, the state thereof shall be prolonged. What he's talking about here, he's talking about when transgression of the land, many are princes. When somebody is in, let's say, the President of the United States, and if he is a crooked person, then he is going to have a lot of princesses, have a big government. He's going to have a lot of bureaucrats. He's going to have a lot of folks to cover up where he's wrong and wicked. That's a part of big government. You can usually tell when a political party dwells on making a big government, lots of people. It's because there's a lot of shenanigans going on, and I won't tell on you if you don't tell on me. And I'll cover for you and you cover for me. That's about what it amounts to. I don't know how you feel about it, but I just can't hardly stand a big government. I don't like to see a people who have got all of these different positions, but they're politically speaking as buffers for the man who is in charge of all of this. You take a church, and they've got deacons and trustees, but they've got committees and committees and committees and committees. Somebody's read, or somebody said the other day about one church that had something like 100 committees in it. There's something's cockeyed there somewhere in that outfit. That's too many princes, too many people to satisfy. And somebody said that a camel is a horse that's put together by a committee. They just got humps and bumps where they don't even need to be. But I'm saying it's what he's talking about here. When you have transgressions and you have sins, You got lots of princes, a lot of people to be a buffer for you. But by a man of understanding and knowledge, the state thereof shall be prolonged, that is, preserved. Sin produces rulers. And what the world needs, and what our country needs, is statesmen. You have people like Joseph, you have people like Samuel, you have people like Nathan, you have people like Mordecai, you have people like Daniel. It makes a great deal of difference when you can put your trust in the person who is in power. When you have good men, you have good things happening. When you like George Washington, I don't know if there's anybody, I've never heard too much criticism of George Washington. I guess maybe he might have had a few slaves or something like that, and people throw that up, but everybody had slaves back in those days, seemingly. And you take a man like Abraham Lincoln or you know, I don't know. My own thoughts, if I get too political, I'm going to hurt myself. But I think, you know, Ronald Reagan sure did a lot of good for this country. But when you got people like Bill Clinton, you got trouble. And it's because of the transgression, they have a big government to sort of, bureaucrats to sort of cover up for all of the foolishness going on. When bad men have government rule, bad things happen. And we people who are Christians, we teach this in our school, that we are to be conservatives. We are not liberals. We are conservative people. We're for the Constitution of the United States. We're to preserve the liberties that our forefathers gave to us. We're not liberal.